Hey everybody, welcome back to Cinematically, the series dedicated to me talking about movies that I may have missed for whatever reason, and today we are talking about a movie that I really wanted to see. I actually wanted to read the book first, never did it, but we're talking about Dr. Sleep. Now this is the sequel to The Shining, in which we follow Dan Torrance as he's an adult, who is played by Ewan McGregor. I think that's a pretty good synopsis of the movie, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Also, don't forget, if you like this video, make sure you go down and hit the thumbs up down below, as well as hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the pacing of this movie. It is super uneven. This movie is about 2.5 hours long, which is probably about half an hour too long, in my opinion. There were certain things that were completely left out, or at least that were included in the movie, that kind of really had no context. Like, it had a very long scene just to set up a very little concept or idea. That kind of wasn't necessary. They showed the same thing kind of happen twice, and they didn't really need to show it happening twice. Not the same exact scene, but the same idea. And I felt like that was kind of just unnecessary, probably like most of my videos where I repeat myself several times, which you've probably seen in the past, so there's that. But essentially they just don't do a good job of evening out the pace. They try and pick it up, and then they very slow it down. Actually, most of the movie is pretty slow for the most part. Very slow build up. A lot of things that feel like they go nowhere, but eventually get to somewhere, kind of. But for the most part, this movie kind of just is blah in terms of pacing. It's long, it's good, it's okay, but it's long. And I think that's what kind of leads me into my next point, is that this movie has a lot of great ideas, especially building off of the sequel, which is The Shining. There's a lot of interesting things that they go through there, but it's mainly towards the end that a lot of those concepts even start coming into play. But for the most part, the beginning is just sort of a different movie. It's a different story altogether. But once they finally get to the Overlook Hotel and doing a lot of things like that there, spoiler alert by the way, they do go back to the Overlook Hotel. But once they kind of get to that point, that's when it sort of gets to be like, oh, that's right, this is a sequel to The Shining. But everything before that, other than like the name references and a couple maybe brief scenes or bits of dialogue, do you remember that, oh yeah, this is related to a movie that's probably one of the most popular horror movies of all time? Now, I do have to give a little bit of credit where credit is due, because the original Shining, which was directed by Stanley Kubrick, was very much a departure from Stephen King's novel The Shining. So, although Stephen King did write the sequel, Dr. Sleep, this one, I don't know how the pacing relates to that, so maybe that's where some of the disconnect comes in, but they certainly feel like very different movies. I think the director was probably trying to pay homage to what happened in the story and the actual novelization of Dr. Sleep, but once it came to, oh, we have to go back, they had to go to the Stanley Kubrick one, which made this movie feel like it was two completely different movies. But I do have to say one of the bright spots is the little girl who plays by KYLIEGH, I believe is her name, or something along those lines. I'll put her picture next to me or something with her actual name. But she does a great job as the little girl who does so many cool things. Like, I think her character, if we just forgot about Dan Torrance for the most part and just focused on her character, this would have been a way better movie. But that's going to lead me into my next point, which I'll get to in a second. For the most part, this little girl was the scene stealer of every single part of this movie. She was not only very gifted in terms of her acting, but she also did a really good job in terms of what she was doing in the story. Her character was just a badass little girl, and she's only like 12. So I really look forward to seeing her in the future. But what I was relating that to my next point is that because they do feel like very different movies, anything pretty much involving this little girl feels very much like, not necessarily a Disney Channel original movie, but it feels like a YA book turned into a movie. What I mean by that is, if you have ever seen The Vampire's Assistant, I Am Number 4, or any movies that are basically a young adult novel turned into a movie, you kind of get the style. It feels like that whenever she's on screen, whenever there are certain things happening to her character or around her character, it feels like those YA movies. But once you start bringing in Dan Torrance and we get into that sort of ending, actually even involving Dan Torrance in the beginning, but once you get to the ending, or like the final third of the movie, when we go back to the Overlook Hotel and we switch gears and go back into, oh yeah, this is the Shining sequel, that's when you feel like, okay, this is a different movie now. So it's very divided. I think it's just kind of confused on what it wants to be. It's not a bad movie by any means. It has a lot of good stuff, but for the most part, it's going to struggle. If you're a fan of The Shining, whether it be the novel or of the movie, or even if you've read Dr. Sleep, which I haven't, unfortunately, you'll probably like this movie for some aspects, but you won't connect with it because it feels like two totally different things that just don't work well together, but in a way they work well enough that they were able to make a full-fledged movie out of it. So those are pretty much all my thoughts on Dr. Sleep. I don't want to go too deep into it. Those are pretty much the bare bones of it. There's not much more to it, despite this movie being about 2.5 hours. If you have seen Dr. Sleep, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear more. Also, make sure you hit that thumbs up if you did like this video, as well as hit subscribe and the bell notification, as I do have a new Cinematically every single Thursday, as well as go live on Sundays. Also, if you want to know about any of my gear or anything that I use, I do have affiliate links, which I would greatly appreciate if you did use that, if you want to purchase anything from there or on Amazon, down in the comment section down below, or in the description rather, where you can find anything that I use, and that's actually going to be really updated soon, so make sure you subscribe for future videos, because I will be talking about some of the gear that I use if you like any of that stuff. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one.